everybody, and also I want to give a special thank you to the Young Democrats here on Fort Hays campus. A very active group, and it's good that you're all fired up again. I think a lot of them aren't back to school here yet, but nonetheless, I see a few here that actually helped with my campaign last year, and I hope you'll do the same thing for our candidate for the First Congressional District. It was once said where somebody was being asked to run for the First Congressional seat, and the guy said, well, why would I run for Congress? I might as well just run for the U.S. Senate. It's only a handful of counties more. And as you look at any of the brochures and all that, you'll see that it's 63 counties. And over the years, I've seen this being a really daunting task for somebody. You know, it costs a lot of money, it costs a lot of time to crisscross the state. And so I admire anybody that wants to step forward and do that. And so with Callie stepping forward, and what's really great about her, there's a couple things that stand out. One is, you know, her farming background, growing up on a farm in southwestern Kansas, so she can at least talk agriculture, you know, in real terms. And then also, you know, her educational background. When I was in the state legislature, that was always my bailiwick, was education. I always felt that that was the best return on our investment. So we have a candidate that, you know, has those two important backgrounds, and I'm sure, you know, she's an author and so forth, so a lot of things will come out as she goes through the campaign. And I really hope that we can all stand behind her and support her, because I think when we look at the last few election cycles, you know, there's always an incumbent with a huge treasury, and so I think in one of her comments, either in Hudson or something like that, she mentioned that this election is more of a level playing field. I think there's about 4 or 5 Republicans looking to get into the race. And so the fact is, everybody's not going to come in with a huge war chest. They're going to start out with $0 and start raising some bucks. And so she's not going to be up against somebody that's got $2 or $3 million in their coffers. And unfortunately, that's what it's come to in our elections nowadays. For a congressional seat, you have to spend huge amounts of money. So, is there somebody speaking after me?
No.
No?
The next representative of the First District.
Oh, well, then I'm not going to take any more time here, but I am honored to actually, you know, ask to speak here a little bit. I'm on the City Commission right now, so those of you that are not from Hays, welcome to Hays, especially our candidate and her staff. So, without further remarks from me, I want to have everybody here give a nice warm round of applause for the next congressional leader from the state of Kansas, from the 1st District, Callie Barnett. Nice to meet you.
This is the first time you've ever talked with them?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you already think she's...
Well, I can't take it back. We've had phone conversations.
Okay.
Yes, we have.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. It means a lot that you will come out at noon on a Monday on this really hot, humid, beautiful Kansas day. I'd like to start today by thanking each and every one of you for coming here and being a part of this positive change for movement. I would like to thank my team. Each event that we have been to, they have been working tirelessly and had fun in the process, and I could not do it without them. I would like to thank Katie. Where's Katie? There she is. Katie is, and yes, please. Katie is an incredible leader for this university and for the Young Democrats here in Hays, and it is people like you who will and already are changing our country, especially here in the 1st District, and I thank you. I thank all the other Young Dems, especially who are here today. It means a lot, and I support you, and I look forward to having many, many, many events with you. I would like to thank my partner, Stephen, who's here today. He's in the back. We just celebrated 5 years yesterday, And we had a unique celebration with celebrating halfway through our tour of announcements. And thank you so much for joining us on our 4th stop today. So, my name is Callie Barnett. I am a farmer's daughter. I was born and raised in Garden City, Kansas. I've been a teacher for the last 12 years, and I didn't plan to go into politics, but we all know, and I know, that there is a need for change. So that's why I am so excited to announce that I am running in the 1st District of Kansas for the House of Representatives for Congress. So I would like to start at the beginning with my life so you can get a better picture of me and who I am. I have really fond memories of growing up and spending time with my father and my family on our wheat farm. Many times we would hop in my dad's red pickup truck. He always had to have a red pickup truck. And we would start and blast music. It was either KGI radio or it was the Beach Boys. And our favorite song was Barbara Ann, because that's my mother's name. And so we would go down the highway, see the beautiful Kansas scenery, and we'd sing on the top of our lungs, ba 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 Barbara Ann, ba 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 ba. And here's my dad's part. He was a tenor. Barbara Ann, take my hand. And it was just quite awesome. I have memories of riding on my grandpa Charles's plane. His family owned a supply store on the main street of Garden City, Kansas, and he decided after flying his plane in the Army that he would take on farming. And that is how most of the farmland that my family had was to come to our family. He had a small engine plane that he would fly around to the different farmlands that he had. And there's a great picture on my website of me sitting on the tail of his plane with my little stuffed animal. And it was just an incredible and beautiful childhood. My mother loves to say as soon as I found my voice that I was singing. I was singing at the dinner table. As soon as I really just could, I started singing at church. My first solo at the First Christian Church in Garden City, Kansas, I was 5 years old, stood up in front of a crowd of a couple hundred people easily, and sang, "If I were a butterfly, thank the Lord for giving me wings." And I just loved it. I spent most of my childhood singing and performing, and I realized that it was a vehicle for me. Using my voice could help not only spread joy for my life because I loved it, but it was a way for me to connect with people, and it was a way for me to spread joy and happiness and love. My father and I would get up early on Sunday mornings, and he'd wake me up and he'd say, "Come on, let's go sing." We would go to retirement communities, most of the time not even planned, and we'd walk in and we'd just say, "Hey, does anybody want to sing with us?" And we would lead worship, we would sing, we would share so many smiles and so many memories. And that continued up through my high school experience. I went from band camp to then show choir, singing all over the community in Garden City, to being asked to sing at different weddings and performances with my father. And there was one instance in particular, one event that I will always remember for the rest of my life. When I was 17 years old, a family friend asked my father and I to sing at a wedding together. My father actually chose the song that I was going to sing, and it was called "A Time for Us." On the day of the wedding, I sang first, and there was just something different about that day. I remember when I was finished singing, I sat down next to my dad, and he looked at me with tears in his eyes, and he just said, "Callie, I'm just so proud of you. You sang really beautiful today, and I just love you so much." My father sang a song, and there was a lot of people at the wedding, but he just looked straight at my mother the entire time and sang to her with tears in his eyes. And I saw that love. I didn't know that that was going to be the last time that I heard my father's voice. afternoon, my father passed away from a massive heart attack. In an instant, my family was shattered. The backstory that I haven't shared with you is that most of the farmland that my family farmed was owned by a different owner that was not a part of our family, and they decided to sell the land. So in a very quick amount of time, my family experienced financial turmoil. A few days before my father passed away, he looked at me, again with tears in his eyes, and said, I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I don't know how I'm going to provide for you. I've been a farmer my whole life. I grew up on the farm with my dad. I grew up on the farm with my grandfather. And I tell you this story today because that pain is still with me. And I may not know every farmer's unique situation, but I know how hard my father worked. I witnessed it every single day. And I know how hard our Kansas farmers work. And I want you to know that I will take that pain and I will move it forward and use it in a positive way. I've done it my entire life, and I will continue to now do it for the First District, Kansas, citizens and people, our community members. A few weeks before my father passed away, my family had to file for bankruptcy. A few days after he had his funeral, we had to sell all of his farming equipment. I'm really proud of my family and my mother and our strength that we have. I'm not glad that that situation happened to us, but I'm confident that I can use that for positive change. So from there, we forged ahead. I experienced my senior year in high school, and I used that passion for love and for music to continue to do positive things for my community. I was chosen to be Dolly in Hello Dolly, our community program and play. And I'll never forget coming out in this bright red gown and singing, well, hello, Harry, well, hello, Harry, it's so nice to have you home where you belong. And I just knew at that moment I was going to end up on Broadway. I just knew it. So I set my eyes on that. Anytime I've made a goal for myself, I go for it. And I give everything I can to achieve it. So I started auditioning for schools in Chicago and New York, and I made it in. I also auditioned at Friends University, and I couldn't say no to the scholarships. I had to say no at that time to New York because I didn't want to take on the insurmountable debt that would have come along with it. So the smart choice, which I'm so glad I made, was to go to Friends University. It was there, a few weeks in, going to my music theater classes, that I was pulled aside by Dr. Riney. Dr. Riney is a pillar in the Wichita community, and he pulled me aside and said, Callie, I've watched you. I think you should be a teacher. And I said, really? But I love to perform. And he said, well, the best teachers are performers. You need to connect with your students and share your passion. So he enrolled me in classes, and my life was forever changed. I'm so glad that he saw that in me, and I will forever be a teacher. I have now closed the chapter on my teaching career, so I can give my full-time attention to this campaign. But I'm a teacher in a different way. Even if I'm not in a classroom, this experience is teaching in many, many ways. During my college experience, I also had my arm twisted, and Miss Garden City pageant decided that I should be a part of it. So I ended up winning Miss Garden City 2004, and it was a really exciting time because it was the 125th anniversary of Garden City being a city. And I got to do all the exciting things of riding in the parade, riding in my grandfather's Ford Model T. He says it was one of the proudest moments he had. And it was that experience that I didn't even know would prepare me so much for this one. The thing that was so important and powerful for me in that experience clearly was not wearing the bikini and the high heels and being judged. If I can do that, I can handle this, and I truly believe that. But for me, the part that kept me going for 3 years in that experience was the platform issue. My grandmother last week, when I talked to her a lot last week in preparation for all of this, she said, Callie, you know, you always stood out in front of me with the other candidates when you had your moment to speak on your platform issue, because every other candidate would say, I chose my platform because when it came to you, you said, I didn't choose my platform chose me. You can probably guess what I spoke about, and it was heart disease and the prevention of it. I took that pain and I turned it into something that was powerful. It was incredibly difficult for me to stand up, especially at that time when it was so new and fresh and painful, and stand up in front of large crowds of people and talk about the ways that you can prevent heart disease and recognize early signs of a heart attack and stroke. But I knew that if my father had heard that message, that maybe he would still be alive today. And that passion I bring to our first district constituents. So after college, I graduated and had a teaching certificate. I went out into the world, found my first teaching job, was so excited. I decorated all the things. I had cowboys singing on billboards, on bulletin boards, and I just knew teaching was my life. And for the last 12 years it has been. And I'll tell you, I've had some of the most beautiful experiences sharing joy and music with students. For sometimes when they're 2 years old, it might have been the first experience they've had. But I've also experienced the turmoil of a system that is broken and not supporting our students and our teachers. When I worked in Wichita, it was during the Brownback tax experiment, and I started getting emails within 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, in capital letters saying, music teacher jobs most likely to be cut, start fighting for your job. So I started going to town hall meetings, school board meetings, calling my own meetings in my schools. And I watched school after school get closed. I watched our support staff go away. And my class sizes started out as 24 students. That grew to 28. And my last year in Wichita, most of my classes had 41 students. 41. That's about the number of people in this room right now. Imagine teaching 5-year-olds and not having support staff and meeting all of their social and emotional needs and teaching them music and handing them maracas and tambourines. It's a really difficult, challenging experience. Year after year after year, I found myself taking on extra jobs, teaching more music lessons, because every single year my benefits were cut back and I was not allowed to get a raise. I earned my master's from Wichita State University. I earned special certifications that take years to get. Meanwhile, every single year, when my paycheck would come, it was less. We have to do better. I'm telling you my story because a U.S. House of Representatives, the 1st District of Kansas, deserves to have someone that you want to sit across the table from, know, and be able to have an honest conversation with, and then know that they are going to fight for you. They're going to take your ideas and listen and be able to work forward in positive change. They're going to vote for the right reasons, and I would hope, with you knowing my backstory, that that would help you make your decision. So I'm certain there are many things in this room that we can agree on, but I would love if you would participate with me to see if we can find some of the things that we do agree upon. So, raise your hand if you have things that you are thankful for. Raise your hand if you are glad that you're here today.
Hey!
Yay! Awesome. I'm glad to hear it and see it. Raise your hand if you've ever put off going to the doctor because you were afraid of the cost. Raise your hand if you've been worried about how you're going to pay for your health care costs, or if you're currently paying off some medical bills. Raise your hand if you're paying off student loans. Raise your hand if you don't know when you will actually ever be able to pay them off. Me too. Raise your hand if you would love to go to school, if it were more affordable, or learn a new trade. Raise your hand if you are a teacher, or if you know one. That should be everybody, because now you know me. Raise your hand if you've ever called your current representative in office. Raise your hand if you felt like they listened to you. Look around the room. Raise your hand if you would like to. Yes. Raise your hand if you would like to see more women in office.
Yeah.
So let's make that happen. So, for the last 12 years I've been a teacher, and a lot of people in this process ask me who I am, why I want to run, and most importantly, why I might be qualified to run for this office. And here's what I've come up with. There's 3 things. You need to work really, really hard, have a lot of great people around you and support, and you need to have a whole lot of grit. So I want you to know that I give 110% to everything that I do. It's all I know how to do. Closing the chapter to my teaching career was really, really hard. My fiance can tell you, I spent the last Saturday before my last week of school, most of it was spent with me crying because I cared deeply about my students and all the schools that I have been to. It's just an incredibly powerful experience being a teacher, and it has been very traumatic for me. So doing this experience is really important for me to give it my all. A little bit ago, we showed things that we agree upon, and we all know that there are things that we can agree upon that the First District of Kansas people need. We need more support for teachers and students. We need support for infrastructure. Imagine if we had trains like they do in Europe that would take us from Hayes to Garden City to Emporia to Manhattan. Imagine how that would change our healthcare needs, especially if it were extremely affordable. We need to move towards renewable energy. Today, my team and I, we stopped, pulled off of I-70 so we could take a moment to just look at the wind turbines, their beauty, and how that symbolizes the change for green renewable energy and how we need to move forward in that. It makes me so proud to see that we have those all over the First District of Kansas. One wind turbine powers up to 500 homes. It's just incredible. We know that we need to make earth-conscious decisions today. I carry around reusable straws in my purse, as well as metal silverware that I can reuse. I give it away as much as possible. We can all make simple changes that will help our future. We can all agree that healthcare is our mind, our body, and our soul. Our mind is our mental health care, taking care of ourselves and others, providing that opportunity for them. Our body, we need to eat healthy food. We need to have access to it, ending food deserts, and treating food as medicine. We need to work on our soul. I'm just so glad as a teacher and a person that mindfulness is a buzzword, and I hope that it's here for a really long time, because we need to talk more and more and more about how we take care of ourselves and how we treat other people, and simple ways that we can recognize how to do that in our daily lives. Healthcare, we know that we need to maintain the facilities that we have. We cannot allow them to close, and we need to open more facilities that are easily accessible and affordable. We know we need to continue the fight for equal pay and people of color. We know that we need a tax structure and an economy that benefits people like you and me who work very, very hard. And right now, our system is only supporting the 1%. So let's take a moment to talk about community. At this time, especially with the events that have happened in the last few days, this message is really important for me to share. Growing up in Garden City, Kansas, one of the most diverse populations in the United States, I'm so proud of the music and the culture and the life and the languages and the people that I experienced. I cannot imagine my life without that. It is up to us to look at the ugly face of racism, and what teachers say with bullying and racism is that it is a zero tolerance for any form. We need to love our neighbors, and for me, that is inclusion. We support our veterans, our patriots, our LGBTQ citizens, our immigrant population, and we love them and we support them. Hate is exclusion. Love is inclusion. And I want you to know that that is what this campaign is all about. We are spreading a message of love. I would like to take a moment to say that my heart goes out to the families who are suffering from what has happened in the last few days. We have a public safety epidemic. We need to focus right now on spreading love, supporting our community members, and demanding action. We need common sense solutions put in place today. So cry if you need to, hug a friend, and love a lot harder, because we fight love with heart. We fight hate with heart. So, I want you to know that I am running for Congress because I want to be a voice for you. We all know that this community deserves that. You deserve to have a voice that will represent you in Washington, D.C., that cares about you, that listens to you, and will work very hard to do that. November of 2020 is a long ways away. We are just getting started, but right here, this experience, this is the movement, this is the positive change that we are working towards. Earlier, we found common ground, so let's keep that conversation going. Let's have those difficult conversations when needed and keep building that, because that's our future. Together, we can. I think all of us should say that together. Let's try it. Together, we can. Let's do it one more time. Together, we can. Do you believe it?
Yeah.
I believe it. So this is all very exciting, and it's only the beginning. I want you to know that this is a grassroots campaign, and we are funded by a lot of love, hard work, and we're putting a lot of miles on our car in all 63 counties, and we all know that that gas isn't free. It is very crucial that in order to keep this campaign going, that we rely on our grassroots, and that means we go to califorkansas.com, we make a donation, one-time donation helps us get started. A monthly reoccurring donation ensures that we keep going. I challenge you to consider a donation monthly reoccurring of $20.20. If you would like to right now, you can pull out your phones, go to www.califorkansas.com. Tell your friends, please follow us on social media. We are doing lots of exciting things to spread a positive message. So, I look forward to seeing you around the great state of Kansas. Please reach out to me with questions and comments. I want to listen and help build policy that will help us and change our lives for the future. Thank you for being here today. So at this time, I can take a few questions.
As you're traveling in Kansas, of course it's a state issue, but are your audiences talking about Medicaid expansion and all?
You know, the healthcare is absolutely an issue that is right there on the top. And I look forward to really listening and learning about the needs of our Kansans, about the First District, and really working towards building policy and absolutely having those discussions.
You said you were interested in keeping the current medical facilities opening and having more. How would you, from the federal level, affect that?
You know, for me, it's funding, funding, funding. It's a plan. It's people coming together, looking at what we need and figuring out how we do that.
What kind of funding? Do you have any idea on that yet?
You know, this campaign is just getting started, and we're just building our grassroots campaign. And I look forward to listening, learning, and really building those policy ideas, and would love to share them as the campaign continues.
Does that mean that you're going to, as you move into the general campaign, that you will be ready to face a Republican candidate? Particularly those, for example, Ken Rogers, who is attached to the Kansas Farm Bureau to the hip. His father ran the Kansas Farm Bureau. Are you prepared to understand the farmers and their programs and be able to chat with him in debate? Are you going to be ready by that time?
Absolutely.
All right, let's prepare. Let's get you ready. What's the difference between a CRP, an MFP, and let's try this one. How about an SMP?
So I thank you for your question at this time,
So that's going to be the questions that are going to be asked.
and I appreciate your question very, very much. Today, I'm here to launch my campaign, get people excited, to know about who I am, and push this forward. I know that that is probably not the answer you're looking for,
It isn't, and that's probably what's...
and that's okay.
You're going to have to be answering that question.
Absolutely.
Okay, you're ready for it.
Yes.
Was there a moment or an event or something that made you really, you're just gonna watch the news or talking to kids or something that you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this now because it's a big deal?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I love sharing this moment. I know after the 2016 elections, I looked at especially some of my women colleagues, and we looked at each other and said, we have to do more. And we made a personal pledge to do that. We all agreed. We didn't know exactly what that would look like, but more conversations with our students, with our family members. And for me, that conversation has been going. And after seeing the teacher strikes in West Virginia and Oklahoma, knowing from my personal teaching experience and the heartbreak that I've had with the system, that I watched as they fought and fought and fought for a 5% raise on some salaries that have been frozen for 5, 10, 15 years. So when they're asking for a 5% raise, ending up getting a 3.5% raise on a salary that should be here, it took them from here to about here. They might be able to get a little bit more groceries to put on the table to feed their families. And it's looking at that, experiencing my own things in life, where I finally found myself in a lot of conversations last year of what can I do to help. I love helping in my classroom, but what can I do to help the greater population of teachers? And I finally found myself saying to my therapist, actually, you know, there needs to be teachers at the federal level who can come together, bring ideas to the table, start the conversations, and have ideas for change. And I said, well, I guess I can do that. So that was a moment I just kind of gulped, went home and talked to my partner Stephen about it, and that led to a lot more conversations, and here I am. Thank you. Yes?
What many Democrats in Kansas have given their support to your campaign?
Lots of people.
Name some.
John Carlin, Kelly Atherton, basically the entire Kansas Democratic Party.
Governor Kelly,
Governor Kelly, I have not met with one-on-one.
former Governor Sebelius.
I have not met with Governor Sebelius. Those are
Do you
both on
plan
the
to?
plans, absolutely. Demo Days is happening next week, and all of those things are set.
Have you talked to Josh Swati?
Yes. Also, I've met with Sharice Davids, our other congresswoman from Kansas City. We've had lots of great discussions about our races, and what we're continuing to do for Kansas. Yes?
I appreciated the words that you had about immigrants in Kansas and about a real, very important problem of hate. You
Yes.
know, to use the phrase from Marianne Williamson, collectivized hate. It's not just collectivized, it's mobilized.
Yes?
And I think that Democrats and liberal Democrats need to push back, and we've got to say more. I appreciated, I thought Laura Kelly ran a great campaign for governor, but she also ran away from the issue of immigration when they talked about it. And I think that Democrats need to start talking about it openly. And because we're ceding too much ground to the other side, not all of which are connected to this mobilized and collectivized hate, but they are creating an environment in which it's festering.
Yes?
And there's no pushback at all. So I encourage you, this is really a question, mostly a comment,
Thank
but
you.
an encouragement, words of encouragement, encourage you to continue to talk about that and keep it central to your campaign, because we've got to push back.
I agree. I couldn't agree more.
Are you in favor of impeachment?
I'm here today to talk about what I am doing for this campaign, and I'm not about to talk about our current federal administration.
By the time she's in there, he might be gone.
So, good point.
You have time for one.
Great. One more question. Yes?
You lived in New York, why come back to Kansas?
You know, I've never lost sight of my roots. New York was something that I'm incredibly proud of, and I worked in charter schools in the Bronx. I worked in progressive private schools, and I saw firsthand from lots of different communities and situations that the issues in education are nationwide, which is what prompted me to run this campaign. I know that I could have continued to stay in New York. I've always stayed connected to my roots, and Kansas people are what I connect with, and I know Kansas is my home, and I'm proud of it.